Have you ever had days when you knew exactly what needed to be done and still didn't do it? That moment when the alarm goes off, duty calls, but you freeze. Believe me, that's not a lack of ability. It's a lack of willpower training. And if there's one thing the Stoics mastered, it was how to train the mind to act even when the body wants to quit. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, faced both external and internal battles every day. But he had a secret. He treated willpower like a muscle that grows through practice and purpose. This video is not about temporary motivation. It's about building unshakable discipline rooted in timeless principles. Here, you'll discover 8 powerful strategies the Stoics use to master their impulses, overcome failure, and transform simple daily habits into acts of inner strength. Marcus Aurelius's philosophy isn't just for books. It's for your toughest days, your invisible battles, your mornings where escape feels easier than effort. If you're tired of waiting for motivation and ready to build a will that resists, persists, and transforms, this content is for you. And if you apply just one of the principles you'll learn here, you'll see. Willpower is not a gift. It's a daily choice by those who refuse to be slaves to their impulses. So take a deep breath, because your mind is about to enter training. Let's begin. Stoic philosophy sees the human mind as a command center and willpower as its most powerful muscle. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, never asked to be spared from challenges. Instead, he asked to be strengthened through them. He understood that every difficult situation was an invitation to practice. Just as an athlete doesn't shy away from intense training, the true Stoic doesn't run from the pain that shapes character. Discipline doesn't grow in comfort. It's forged in the deliberate exposure to discomfort, with intention and courage. The training of will begins in the invisible realm of choice. It's in that moment, when no one is watching and you're tempted to give in or stand firm, that the soul is shaped. Marcus Aurelius believed the rational mind must guide the body, not become its servant, and to do that, the mind must be educated. Training willpower, according to the Stoics, means performing small daily actions that silently affirm, I am stronger than my impulses. The more you choose the hard path, the easier it becomes. It's vital to understand that willpower isn't a gift, it's a construction, like lifting weights. At first the muscles tremble, resist, want to quit, but with consistency, they grow. The same applies to the mind. Avoiding distractions, sticking to a plan, saying no when everyone else says yes, all of these build the invisible strength of discipline. Marcus Aurelius said it best, your soul becomes dyed with the color of your thoughts. What you train, you become. That's why a Stoic doesn't wait for willpower to act. He acts, and through that, finds willpower. Action precedes emotion. When you rise from bed without motivation, fulfill a task without applause, or persist without the promise of reward, that's when true strength begins to emerge. In Marcus Aurelius's eyes, willpower was a decision, a silent affirmation that you are the master of yourself. Another essential point, we don't train will just to win external battles. The main goal is to rule your own spirit. When you choose what is right, even when no one sees it, you're telling your soul, I can trust myself. And that kind of strength can't be bought, taught, or borrowed. It's earned in secret, shaped by your inner decisions. Lastly, Marcus Aurelius reminds us, an untrained mind becomes a servant to the body's desires, but a mind that exercises becomes the sovereign of its own destiny. When you grasp this, you realize that it's not difficulty that weakens you, it's your lack of training in the face of it. Willpower is a muscle, and it's time to start strengthening it, day by day, choice by choice. Before you even get out of bed, your mind is already negotiating with your willpower. Marcus Aurelius knew this when he wrote, at daybreak, tell yourself, I was made for action. The first minutes of the day carry immense weight. They don't just determine what you'll do, but who you'll be. It's as if your soul is being summoned to take command, or to surrender it. The way you wake up is often the way you'll live the next several hours. The Stoics taught that consciousness must wake before the body. While the world is still silent, that's when the mind can be shaped with clarity. A Stoic starts the day with intention, not haste. He doesn't wake up reacting. He wakes up choosing. And that choice begins with a powerful thought, a mental anchor. Something that says, my nature is action. My mission is to serve the good. My will is sovereign. That thought becomes the compass for everything that follows. It's common for the mind to search for excuses as soon as you wake up. Just 5 more minutes, Gitta, not today, it's too cold. But that's exactly where the training begins. When comfort calls, the Stoic responds with responsibility. That first decision of the day, whether to rise or to give in, becomes a micro-training of discipline. Marcus Aurelius didn't shy away from this truth. On the contrary, he confronted it directly. Were you made to snuggle under the covers or to fulfill your duties as a rational being? This conscious awakening goes beyond the physical. It's about aligning thought and purpose before the world pulls you into distraction. When you open your eyes with a clear mission, it becomes easier to say no to what's trivial and yes to what's necessary. Cultivating this Stoic morning thought plants a seed of willpower that grows throughout your day. Will doesn't just appear, it's chosen early on. Even on days when getting up feels impossible, that's where the opportunity lies. The Stoics didn't seek perfection, they valued persistence. If you can win that first battle in the morning, your mind becomes stronger for the next one. Over time, you don't just wake up with discipline, you become the discipline itself. And that doesn't come from motivation, but from a silent commitment to who you are becoming. Training your will, then, doesn't begin with big decisions, it begins with your first thought, with a humble no to comfort and a determined yes to your rational nature. It's in this internal awakening that you build the foundation for a day led not by the body's desires, but by the soul's strength. Marcus Aurelius knew this, and now you do too. In Stoic philosophy, discipline is not seen as punishment or as self-denial for the sake of suffering. It's actually a reconnection to what it means to be human. Marcus Aurelius taught that we were made for action, for reason, and for good. When we abandon these principles to chase only comfort, entertainment, or instant pleasure, we betray ourselves. True discipline, then, is a return to the natural order of things. It's living in harmony with who we are at our core. The modern error is believing that discipline equals repression. But for the Stoics, discipline equals freedom. Because once you're no longer a slave to your impulses, you are free. You stop being pulled in every direction by fleeting desires and start walking a straight, deliberate path. Willpower doesn't seek gratification, it seeks direction. And when that direction aligns with your rational nature, it produces something far greater than pleasure: purpose. Marcus Aurelius didn't seek what was easy. He sought what was right. And he knew that what is right isn't always comfortable. He wrote, "Love whatever happens to you, for it was woven into your fate." That's not a call to passive acceptance, but to active alignment with reality. Discipline shows up when you say, "This is what must be done, so I'll do it." Even without motivation, even without reward, because the soul needs this integrity in order to thrive. To act with discipline is like breathing consciously. You return inward, assess what is right, and execute. Not because it feels good in the moment, but because it strengthens your character. The pleasure Stoics pursued wasn't shallow, it was inner harmony, the quiet certainty that your actions reflect your values. It doesn't always feel good. It's often hard, sometimes lonely, but deep down it's profoundly liberating. You'll often hear people say, "Follow what brings you pleasure," but Marcus Aurelius would say, "Follow what brings you meaning," and meaning rarely lives on the easy path. Discipline demands that you face laziness, fear, and temptation, and choose what nourishes your soul, not what flatters your ego. It's in this confrontation that willpower deepens, the mind strengthens, and the spirit rises. So stop using pleasure as a compass. Often the absence of pleasure is the clearest sign that you're actually evolving. Discipline is your inner compass pointing north, even when the road feels steep. And if you follow that trail, you'll realize you're not suppressing yourself. You're becoming who you were meant to be. Every instant desire is your mind trying to escape the present. When you want to delay a task, give up a habit, or chase easy pleasure, what you're experiencing is an impulse, a quick attempt to relieve temporary tension. To the Stoics, the impulse itself isn't the problem. The problem is obeying it without reflection. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it's within your power to resist, then resist. You're stronger than you think." And it's in that resistance that true willpower begins to form. Ignoring an impulse may seem small, but it's one of the highest expressions of inner strength. In that moment, you're proving to yourself that you are not a servant of your desires, but their master. The Stoic understands that not every desire is worthy of being fulfilled. Many are echoes of the ego, distractions of the soul, shortcuts that lead us away from what truly matters. By not giving in to the impulse, you don't lose, you gain control. Stoic courage doesn't lie in grand heroic acts, but in small silent renunciations. Saying no to laziness, no to addiction, no to the need for approval. That's what truly builds a strong soul. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his reflections to be admired, but to stay honest in his own struggle. And you can do the same. Note your temptations, observe your distractions, and remember that every resistance is a brick in the fortress of your freedom. It's key to note that resisting is not repressing. A Stoic doesn't pretend he doesn't feel desire. He simply chooses not to be ruled by it. He observes, understands, and then decides. That pause between impulse and response is where real power lives. When you train yourself to pause before acting, you activate the rational mind, the hegemonikon, and stop living by instinct. That's where the desire loses its grip and consciousness takes command. We all have desires. What separates a trained mind from a weak one is how we respond. When you choose not to give in to quitting, procrastinating, or chasing shallow rewards, you reaffirm your commitment to something greater. You're choosing long-term growth over short-term relief. And that takes more than talent or intelligence. It takes moral courage, the kind the Stoics cultivated as a central virtue. Training this courage starts with the simple things, not checking your phone at every ping, finishing a task without waiting for the right mood, staying focused when everything in you wants to run. Each of these choices says, "My will is stronger than my desire." And as that phrase turns into practice, willpower becomes more than a concept. It becomes your way of life. The Stoics believed that part of willpower comes from preparing for the worst before it ever happens. The practice of negative visualization, or premeditatio malorum, was their way of strengthening the mind against shock. Marcus Aurelius wrote about imagining loss, failure, betrayal, and pain. Not to torment himself, but to build resilience. When you visualize what could go wrong, you don't become pessimistic, you become unshakable. You're not caught off guard. You've already met it in your mind. This practice acts like an internal shield. When you imagine a hard situation and see yourself facing it with dignity, your mind begins to understand that pain is survivable. You train your emotional system not to panic when reality doesn't go your way. Even better, you start to appreciate what you already have. When you mentally face the loss of something, you come back to it with gratitude. It doesn't weaken you, it awakens you. It awakens clarity, presence, and humility. Picture waking up and thinking, "Today I might be criticized, ignored, I might fail." For most people, this would feel discouraging. But for the Stoic, it's liberating, because by accepting the possibility, he's prepared. And if it happens, he remains centered. If it doesn't, he's thankful. Negative visualization puts you in an active state of acceptance, where nothing surprises you and everything teaches you. Marcus Aurelius said, "It's foolish to be surprised by what life has always done. Life will always bring difficulty. That's not a problem. The problem is expecting things to go perfectly." Training the mind for discomfort is like warming up before a battle. It's building an emotional armor that allows you to act with calm even when the world around you is in chaos. It's a kind of discipline that doesn't rely on motivation, but on wisdom. You can start this practice in simple ways. Before an appointment, imagine delays, setbacks, or harsh criticism. See yourself responding with strength. Before a project, imagine it being rejected. See yourself learning from it instead of collapsing. When you do this, you turn fear of failure into familiarity with it. And what's familiar no longer paralyzes you. So understand, negative visualization is not a dark or depressing ritual. It's a path to liberation. When you stop expecting everything to go right, you start moving through life with lightness and courage. Your willpower grows because you're no longer at war with reality. You're working with it. And Marcus Aurelius knew, the one who accepts what comes with courage has already won half the battle. In Stoic philosophy, failure is not the end, it's part of the process. Marcus Aurelius, even as Emperor of Rome and a symbol of wisdom, wrote in his journal like someone still battling impulses, laziness, and distraction. He didn't write to appear perfect. He wrote to remind himself to keep going. To the Stoics, messing up isn't the problem. Quitting is. Relapses don't erase progress. They only show you where your mind still needs to grow. When you break a habit, lose focus, or give in to temptation, it's easy to fall into self-judgment. I ruined everything. I'm not disciplined. There's no point in trying. But the Stoic thinks differently. He understands that willpower isn't measured by the absence of failure, but by the ability to begin again. Each return to the path is a sign of commitment. The mistake becomes fuel, not a wall. Marcus Aurelius said, "When you get distracted, come back to yourself quickly. Don't keep wandering. Come back." That simplicity holds real power. It's not about guilt, it's about recovery. The Stoic doesn't dwell in the mistake. He turns it into a stepping stone. With every fall comes a new chance to declare, "I'm not my slip, I'm my decision to rise." And it's that decision that shapes character. The biggest trap in discipline is believing it requires perfection. But in truth, it only requires consistency. You can fail 10 times as long as you rise 11. You can lose control today as long as you don't give up tomorrow. Stoic progress is built with humility. And that humility isn't weakness, it's maturity. It understands that growth comes through firm steps and momentary stumbles. Both are part of the journey. Willpower also proves itself in the comeback. Some are strong for a while, but quit after the first fall. Others stumble many times but never abandon the path. The second is the true Stoic practitioner. He knows each day is a new chance to return with more awareness. And often, the biggest breakthroughs come right after the hardest setbacks. If you failed yesterday, today is still yours. If you gave in to the impulse, your next step can still be one of strength. Starting again isn't shameful, it's courageous. And in that quiet, repeated return, willpower grows. Not because it's unshakable, but because it refuses to bow to discouragement. The Stoic always starts again, and each new beginning is a victory of the soul over the ego. True willpower doesn't shout, doesn't seek attention, and doesn't need recognition. It acts in silence, through the consistency of ordinary days far from the spotlight. Marcus Aurelius knew this when he wrote, "Be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it." The Stoic doesn't seek applause for doing what's right. He does it because it's right. His discipline is not performance, it's principle. And it's precisely that quiet nature that reveals his strength. We live in a world where everything must be shown. People feel the need to prove they're productive, evolving, or in control. But Stoic philosophy teaches us that the greatest strength is the one that needs no validation. The Stoic doesn't need an audience to be coherent. He acts with integrity, even when no one's watching. His reward isn't external, it's internal. It's the peace of knowing his actions align with his values. This silent willpower shows up in the smallest details. Waking up on time without being reminded, completing a task with excellence even without praise, saying no to a temptation that no one else would notice. Strong will doesn't crave recognition because it's not about vanity, it's about virtue. And the quieter it is, the more powerful it becomes, because it's rooted in self-awareness, not in a need to be seen. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on doing good and letting others think what they will. He understood how much energy we waste trying to impress or please others. The Stoic redirects that energy inward. He disciplines himself to be, not to appear. And in that being quiet, firm, and consistent, he becomes unshakable. The world can doubt him, ignore him, or mock him, but he stays the course, because his commitment is to his soul, not to public opinion. This approach also protects the mind from dangerous traps. Those who act to be praised crumble under criticism. Those who depend on applause lose direction when it fades. But those who act from conviction remain steady, even when no one notices. Silent willpower is the kind that stands firm when the cheers fade and the crowd moves on. It knows who it is, and that's enough. If you truly want to grow, start with depth, not visibility. Let your actions speak, and let them speak quietly. Let your progress be noticed in the strength of your presence, not in the noise of your achievements. Strong willpower is the kind that doesn't need to be seen to move mountains, and that's the kind that turns an ordinary life into a silent, stoic legacy. For the Stoics, willpower wasn't just a tool to resist temptation or meet obligations. It was seen as one of the soul's most sacred elements, a flame within that, when properly directed, lights up the path to meaning. Marcus Aurelius saw life as a moral mission. He didn't ask what he wanted to do, but what needed to be done. Willpower, then, was the bridge between duty and purpose, between conscience and action, between soul and world. When you use your willpower only to conquer short-term challenges, it burns out. But when you connect it to a larger cause, to a value, a truth, a mission that transcends your momentary wants, it renews itself. It becomes a well that doesn't run dry. Will needs purpose to stay alive. Without it, it turns into mechanical effort, empty routine, joyless discipline. But when there is meaning, every sacrifice becomes a seed for something eternal. Marcus Aurelius didn't write just for himself. He wrote to align his soul with the universe. Each sentence was a reminder that his life was part of something greater, and that's what strengthens willpower. The sense that you're not just here to survive, but to serve a principle beyond comfort. Whether that principle is justice, reason, virtue, or faith, choosing a purpose and living through it turns will into something sacred. That's why many people lose discipline, because they try to sustain will without direction. But the soul grows weary when it doesn't know where it's going. The Stoic starts by asking, "What am I doing this for?" And the answer doesn't have to be grand. It could be, to honor my word, to care for those I love, to not betray who I'm becoming. These small answers build a great purpose, and that's what keeps will alive. Willpower, then, is not an end in itself. It's a channel, a tool of the soul to give shape to the invisible, to bring into the world what exists only in the heart. It's the bridge between who you dream of being and who you become. And the more aligned it is with your purpose, the more powerful it grows. Because it's no longer driven just by reason, but by a flame that never goes out. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, to live with purpose is to live with firmness. A soul fed by meaning does not give up, does not sell out, does not get lost. It moves through the world anchored in the eternal, even when surrounded by the noise of the present. And it is this soul daily nourished by disciplined will that finds true freedom. Not the freedom to do anything, but the freedom to do what you were created to do. Now that you've walked through these 8 Stoic principles on willpower, the final question is simple, but powerful. What will you do with this? Because knowledge without action is like a sword without a blade. Marcus Aurelius didn't write to be admired. He wrote to be transformed. It's not enough to understand discipline. You must use it when everything inside you wants to stop, when no one's watching, when giving up feels easier than showing up. That's when the soul reveals its true power. Maybe you're in a moment where your will feels weak, where your habits sabotage you, your thoughts betray you, and the world keeps pulling you down. But remember, Marcus Aurelius faced the same, and still, he chose not to obey his impulses, but his reason. Not to chase comfort, but to stay firm. And if he, surrounded by war, pressure, and duty, could find a source of power within, then so can you. Start small. Start now. Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for the perfect scenario. Start with what you have, where you are. Take one step. Say no to the old pattern. Say yes to your conscience. Say enough to what keeps you distracted. And if you fall tomorrow, get up. If you slip, start again. Willpower isn't born ready. It's shaped daily. And if you train your mind with what you've learned here, you won't just survive your battles, you'll master your inner world. If this video spoke to you, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share it with someone who needs to reclaim control over their life. And remember, willpower is the bridge between who you are and who you were born to become. And it's already inside you, waiting to be trained.